an indication of the kind of effort that went into building this product. We'll show that off to you here by and by. In other words, we work on the legal system of the United States. Can you go to school if you're a blind person? Yes. Can you read your books if you're a blind person? Well, you can read them if you can get them. A lot of blind people go to school and spend a lot of their time in the classroom without having books. There's a law which says that you have a right to get your books as soon as other people get theirs. Part of the time that law is enforced, and part of that time we encourage it to be enforced, because if you're going to have education, you must have books. Can you read using the devices that are out there? Well, some of the time you can, and some of the time you can't. Recently, there have been some electronic devices deployed on college campuses, and sighted people can read what's put into them, but blind people cannot. And it's not that the technology is hard to build, it's just that the companies who put it together haven't done it. And so what we're trying to do is get the same kind of access to information for the blind that other people take for granted, so that's part of it. Then you got to learn how to do things if you're a blind person. What does that mean? Well, you have to learn how to manage your daily life, how to make sure that your socks are the same color, how to make sure that your shirt and your trousers don't clash, how to make sure that you can cook what you want, that you can take a cane into your hand and travel where you want to go, how to be sure that you can read with Braille or with the other technologies that are out there. All of those things we teach in many of the programs that we conduct, and we put a lot of them together here. This last summer we had 175 teenagers who came. They were in what's known as the Youth Slam. The Youth Slam is a teaching experience that lasts about a week. We take all these kids, and then we get the brightest blind scientists and other leaders of the blind from throughout the United States, and we invite them to come, and we get those blind teachers to teach the blind kids. The purpose is only incidentally to teach them a little science. It's mostly to teach them, if they want to go into a field of study that some people think is hard, they can do it. How do you do chemistry if you're a blind kid? Well, we know the answer to this question. How do you study mathematics? We know the answer to that one. How do you travel with a cane? We know how to do this. We show them. We can't teach them everything they need to know in a week, but we can give them the idea that there's something to know that they didn't anticipate, and we can challenge these guys. So a few years ago, in one of the speeches I was making, I talked about building an automobile that the blind can drive. This summer at our Youth Slam, we had the first of the prototypes of that machine, and a lot of the kids got to put their hands on it and try it out. What else are we going to build? Well, we're going to build programs that stimulate, inspire, and challenge people, especially blind people. And then we're going to teach sighted people that blind people can make such contributions that you'd like to have a bright blind person living next door. And that we can be as much of a value to the community as anybody else can, and sometimes even more for certain purposes. All of that we direct here at the National Federation of the Blind Jernigan Institute, which is our national headquarters. That's a sort of a beginning presentation. Undoubtedly there'll be a goodly number of other presentations and some questions as we go forward. Marc Riccobono over there is the executive director of the Jernigan Institute. He directs our educational and research programs. He brought some of the folks who are in the institute with him. Patricia Maurer over here is in our library. She directs many of the volunteer programs throughout the United States. She's been a teacher and an administrator of rehabilitation programs for the blind. Now she works here full-time directing a number of the programs we have. Let's see, Mary Jo Thorpe is our Director of Education, and Natalie Shaheen is a teacher. She probably has a different title that I've forgotten.
She's our education program specialist.
There you go. So, Mark, do you want to take up the next piece, unless there are questions for me?
Sure. Maybe Dr. Maurer, you can also, as we were walking in, I was just giving them a very brief history of the property, but maybe you can give them that piece, how we came to be here and build up this national headquarters.
Oh, well, the national headquarters of the National Federation of the Blind, the National Federation of the Blind Jernigan Institute, is a building that we acquired. We acquired the city block in 1978. It was an old building. It was partly abandoned. It was losing money for its owner. Its owner was glad to sell it to us. We were glad to buy it because we got a city block's worth of property and a number of buildings on the property. We have torn some of those down and built some new ones, but we cover the city block now. And this particular property is the place where we do the innovative kind of work that I've been talking about, and we need a lot of space to do it, which is why we bought this block in the first place. We used to rent space. We have a program to provide aids, appliances, materials, and literature to the blind. One of the things that you need to know if you're a blind person is that there are certain things that are possible for you that other people don't know how to do. So we have a publication called The Blind Can Sew. How many people sew? I don't know, but blind people can do it as well as anybody else, and so we have a document that tells you you can and gives tips and techniques about how to do it. Then we have one called The Blind Can Cook, and we have a number of cookbooks that are produced in Braille. More blind people cook than sew, I believe. At least the ones I've met often cook, and so we want to encourage blind people to know that this is possible. Some blind people, when they become blind, especially if they've been sighted previously, think that most of the things that they did with their eyes cannot be done. Well, that's not true. If you use an alternative method of getting at the same kind of information, most of these things can be done, and consequently we want to teach people how. So we have many publications that we give away. Then we have an aids and appliances program. We have Braille watches and talking watches and canes and writing supplies and Braille making devices and all manner of things that blind people use to do all of the things that people do. These are specialized devices, mostly available for the blind. And we used to rent space to distribute these products and all of this literature. When we bought the building, we thought that there would be opportunities for all kinds of educational programs that were much more extensive than those previously. And so we bought this big building and we put it together to make it practical to do all of that, as well as the administrative management of a national organization that has a presence in Washington, D.C. and otherwise.
Thank you very much.
That's great.